world, to the public, to the media, to the people have to talk about it. And they, unfortunately, even if you defeat the idea intellectually, you still have to relieve injustice. You have to eliminate injustice. Otherwise, this problem will continue on happening.
Thank you. Good point. So we'll go to another table, inshallah.
So we've talked a lot about the international issues and the injustices taking place in multiple other countries, for which I'm sure we're very well aware, and I think we all understand how those injustices drive the notions of extremism in multiple other countries. However, why then are some of these notions being driven within our own country? And so we, as a group, we talked about what's the difference between extremism here versus extremism in the United States or in the rest of the world, and does it actually exist in the United States? And we brought up some examples. There was a recent scenario in Worcester, there was the Fort Hood scenario, and these are born and bred Americans who are waging war on their own people, basically. And so, the problem is definitely prevalent, and it exists. And why does it exist? Are there personal issues? Are there family issues? Are these all purely politically motivated based on these injustices going on elsewhere in the world? Or is there some form of an intolerance that's bred within the Muslim community? Earlier today in your khutbah, you talked about this fence that we build around ourselves as a community, and has that in some way caused us to be so fearful of everyone else that now we become intolerant of these differences or any sort of oppression or injustice, to the extent that now we've created a psyche where someone can actually say it's okay to blow themselves up to kill little babies or innocent civilians. I mean, where do we draw the line, or where did we cross a line that someone has now said that that's okay? There is no form of Islam that's ever said that. Whether it's a just war, unjust war, what have you, there's never been any form that's ever said that. So where did we cross that line? I think that's a question that's still unanswered. And then in terms of what can we do to address these issues in our own communities, I think we kind of agree that it starts at the home with the families. A lot of especially our immigrant-based families have these tendencies where there's certain things you just don't talk about at home or with your parents. And I think families themselves need to initiate more open, consistent dialogue about issues like this. And, parents need to be aware of what their children are thinking, and children need to be aware of what their parents are thinking. And then in terms of the communities, there was this recent scenario in Worcester where a brother was arrested for having some forms of terrorist plots on his computer. And, Saad here mentioned how the majority of the community seemed to be just, giving him the benefit of the doubt and was at his defense without really even knowing this guy or knowing the facts of the case. And so what is it about us that's always jumping to give benefit of the doubt to our fellow Muslims? Certainly we should, but at the same time, we're ignoring a lot of facts and ignoring the fact that, this extremism does exist amongst certain people, and we need to kind of address it amongst our communities, whether this be through, meetings like this, or social workers, or our imams, our leadership, kind of addressing these issues more consistently with the youth or with families, kind of having less of that taboo feeling that you can't come to people with problems. I think there's a lot of these hurdles that if we overcome them, I think these issues, if they're addressed easier, maybe we could kind of solve them before they ever even sprout. I guess I'll stop there.
Great. Anything else from this table?
Yeah, I'll just add one quick point. Assalamu alaikum. We're in the business here, I guess, of asking some really provocative questions, so I'm going to ask one question. To what degree is this a problem, reflects a problem within the Muslim community? One of the greatest blessings and one of the, I guess, also greatest downsides of the Muslim community is that we're a collection of different cultures and groups and organizations and faith and backgrounds and ethnicities. So, to what extent has that really bred this problem where we tend to ignore different groups within our community who may espouse these beliefs, or this tends to marginalize certain parts of our community. So I guess
What do you mean by ignoring that?
Ignoring in the sense that, somebody from this background may believe this one thing, which may lead to a form of extremism, whereas another group, and just, for sake of arguments, or for argument's sake, say Pakistanis may not believe this, but Arabs believe that, and that leads to one form of extremism. So that's one point that I'd like to make up or bring up. And then the other form is the Muslim community tends to be very fragmented in one sense. And elements who may tend towards extremism, individuals or groups, tend to be able to flow through the community and get towards extremism, or find a kind of breeding ground through that isolation towards extremism. And so I'm not sure if that point was rather clear, but I feel that I guess the overall question is, to what extent is this a problem with the Muslim community?
This table, are you ready? Salah, ready?
Assalamu alaikum. I think a couple of the things we talked about they've already been mentioned, but working just with the relationships within our lives, as one of the other brothers said it so beautifully, just to kind of shine. With whatever circles you are in your life, whether it's work, all the different circles of your life, whether it's work, community, and so on. And to teach our families, we said. We also mentioned, we also mentioned leadership, kind of adding on to his last comment that maybe to have, it could be beneficial to have a face or a couple of faces of perhaps modern Islam in the United States that people could go to for Islam opinion, so that they didn't end up just picking someone. It was someone that the Muslim community had agreed upon, and perhaps they had advisors around them. And it could become someone or a group of people that the American society gets used to and become familiar with. And I'd say that's.
Just some things. I think one problem that we have is that I feel a lot of children are raised having the idea that it's like, it's us and it's them. Like, I mean, as good as Islamic schools are, and Islamic environment, and being, involved with masajid and stuff, I mean, a lot of kids are just like, oh, it's us and it's the white kids, and, I think that idea has really hindered us from moving forward. I think it's necessary to, I think it's okay to be friends with non-Muslims, and through that, that's how you teach other people who don't know. I'm in college now, and some people come from so many different states. Some of them have never really seen or spoken to a Muslim before. And I think it's necessary to integrate ourselves, and keep our roots, remember it, but still become involved. And for example, I volunteered at a church last year for, it was like a homeless, we used to have dinner at a church, and I went, and just to show your face as a Muslim, but I'm helping not only my kind, I think that's important. And another thing I think is to preach, act on what we preach. We always say Islam is all about peace and stuff, yet, some of our youth are just in their actions and in their speech and their lingo, just very, I don't know, the word is not very peaceful. If you just look at, the Algerian/Egyptian soccer games where people are killing each other over sport, I don't think that's very peaceful. You can't say, oh, Islam is all about peace, yet over a game, people are dying. I think you need to, act based on what we say.
Kind of playing off what she said about the youth, we also thought that the youth is kind of, I guess, the target, so to speak, for extremists. And I think it's two kinds of extremism also, that the people who are fanatics, religious